From the kitchen of the cabin, it's the 5 Games for Doomsday review. Founders of Gloomhaven. There's a well-known board game podcaster, not only well-known but well-respected, and this is worth saying as these things don't necessarily accompany each other. He's well-respected because he talks about games in terms that are more than just this was fun or this is broken. He approaches the whole discipline of talking about games as a discipline. He seeks to systematise and codify terms and concepts and transform game design from strange people in outdated pastel clothing, tinkering in back bedrooms and local church halls, into something that can be taught and understood. He seeks to transform game design from a hobby to an industry, to have analogue games follow their pixelated cousins into the world of professionalism. Of course, game design has been professional for ages, but almost in secret. This is what happens when there is no language to talk about something. There is no way for the concepts to spread, to contaminate the discourse, because sentences don't stick like phrases, and phrases don't adhere like words. People denigrate the specific lexicon of an industry as jargon, but it is jargon, these freeze-dried conceptual packages that rehydrate into ideas that catch and spread. It goes without saying that I hugely respect this podcaster, but he has one idea that I wholly disagree with. He has said many times that if you play a game and you don't engage with it, then you shouldn't give it a second chance. The reasoning follows that there are so many games in the world that you will easily find one that you instantly click with, so why waste life's most valuable resource? If I had followed this advice, I would have sold The Lonesome Crowded West after one listen. I would be telling all that cared to hear how The Godfather is hugely overrated, and this would have been a much less enthusiastic review. My first play of Founders of Gloomhaven was ponderous and frustrating. Had I have written my review after this first play, I would have spoken about how this game was willfully recondite and inelegant. I would have spoken about how unengaging I found the whole experience, and I would have blamed the game rather than my own scant knowledge. Founders of Gloomhaven is a tile-laying, resource-transporting game in which the players assume the roles of the various factions that constructed the eponymous city when the world was fresh and nomenclature held less resonance. I'm sure that the game is filled with winks and nods and references for those conversant with its bigger brother, but as I'm not one of them, they were completely lost on me. Thankfully, the game stands perfectly well on its own, and previous knowledge is completely unnecessary. Players each have the same hand of cards and play one of them on their turn. These cards allow you to do various things that help to build the city. They follow a lead-follow structure, with the leading player doing an action and the rest of the people around the table being able to follow with a slightly weaker version of the action or taking one of the permanently available basic actions. To retrieve their cards, players play the call to vote action, which instigates an election to decide which of the buildings of prestige will be placed onto the board. These buildings have demands that will be immediately fulfilled when they're connected by road to the right resource, and it is in these buildings that players will score the majority of their points. There is a lot that's familiar in this game. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, and Isaac Childress is no different. This is not a drawback, though. We are a pattern-recognising species that thrives on familiarity. It allows us to make mental handholds that can pull us into the game, and sometimes familiarity can throw us into a reverie of remembrance of times past, and the conscious and subconscious hugs of memory can build calm, which is the platform for experience. The lead-follow mechanic in this game is a wonderful callback to games like Puerto Rico and Eminent Domain, and the obvious advantage is that players are engaged on every turn, not just their own. Except there are those people that, for whatever reason, are unable to regulate the time they take on their turns. They hem and haw and delay and prevaricate, they dither and procrastinate. They have the knack of hoovering up all of the fun in a game by their inability to make a decision. They greedily monopolise all of the time, their inaction leading to glancing at clocks and the 1,000-yard stare. When extreme, this behaviour can kill an evening. But even then there's a little island of relief. A person can take it upon themselves to somewhat ameliorate the caprices of these time vampires by taking their own turns quickly. They can think between turns and execute with rapidity, except that in a lead-follow game, these people have the time to exercise their own brand of no consideration on every turn. Every turn turned into a Herculean effort not to smack these selfish pricks in the face as they mercilessly value their own pointless precision over the well-being of everyone else at the table. In a lead-follow game, this kind of unforgivable selfishness can kill it and make you want to kill them. This is not the fault of the game, but it is worth considering if you have the misfortune to regularly sit across from one of these chrono-terrorists. Although there is much familiar here, the familiarity lays a solid foundation for the innovation in this game. The way cooperation is forced is both elegant and challenging. Players are prevented from owning certain resources that are vital for them, and so have to pay the opponents for the right to use theirs. This requires giving them the funds they might require to jump in and gazump your plans. There is great tension in the potential brutality that this engenders. It's perfectly possible through sheer expediency to hand the spiky club of your own downfall to your opponent, and so players are perched deliciously on the horns of many dilemmas throughout this game. This game is no socialist paradise of mutual benefit. It is pure capitalism, red in boot and more. For all of the mechanical chrome, Founders of Gloomhaven rests on efficient route building, and the judicious building of routes can set off chain reactions on the board that can propel you to victory. There is a point in every game I've played where, as a group, we've hit critical mass and the game starts to fire off all of these wonderfully satisfying combos that make you feel like you've built a cardboard machine that has developed sentience. It's an incredibly rewarding experience. The only counterintuitive thing in the game is the point scoring system. It's a little difficult to grasp, but it is the game's defining characteristics. Points trickle down. No player can construct everything they need using the resources that they have at their own disposal, so they have to scrounge off the other players, and when it comes time for the investment to mature, everyone who's contributed gets paid. This leads to the crunchy decision of how to maximise your slice of the pie while sloughing off the crusts and gristly bits to the others. You'll never get away with all of the rewards, but the puzzle of how to get the most is breathtakingly refreshing. My first play of this game was hard. It felt like work. There is no doubt that the familiar is scaffolding to hold up the arcane in this game, and wrapping my head around these new concepts was difficult for me at first. After I grasped these concepts, though, the game swam into focus and became a coherent and deeply engrossing whole. My brain started to tick over in that endorphin-drenched way that really good games encourage. What seemed sterile and willfully complicated sublimed into fertile and fecund. Paths to victory formed, and although I wasn't able to traverse the whole path, I felt that one day I could, and that makes me want to open the box again. If I'd refused to engage with this game again after my frustrating first play, if I'd had so much confidence in my own faulty appraisal, I'd have robbed myself of reward and satisfaction. Founders of Gloomhaven is a wonderfully brutal experience. Allow the concepts of this game to sink in, and you will find that after the game is finished, you will be left with the warmth and satisfaction of time well spent. You can support this show by going to patreon.com/5G4D. Thank you for listening.